Despite having engineered the Cyprus coup, the Greek government was apparently unprepared for the Turkish landing on 20th of July 1974. Now faced with their allies on the island being overwhelmed, it took until the evening of the 21st of July for the Greek government to finally make up its mind about what to do. They decided to deploy the 1st Commando Battalion to the island to reinforce the Cypriot National Guard, which lacked the firepower and training to stop the Turkish onslaught. Their first idea had been to use civilian Boeing 727s as transports, but damage caused to Nicosia Airport by Turkish strikes had rendered a third of the runway unusable. The plan, codenamed Operation Nike or Victory, was relatively simple. Commandos would be loaded into 20 Nord Atlases and 10 C-47 Dakotas, and then flown out to Nicosia International Airport by night and in total radio silence. This was an exceptionally risky endeavour, as air superiority over Cyprus was firmly held by the Turks. Even so, Turkish radar coverage over the island was essentially non-existent, besides that provided by warships covering the landing. Operating at night reduced the danger of discovery. The hastily assembled plan also called for a flight of all-weather F-102 Delta Daggers to forward deploy to the semi-prepared airfield at Castelli near Heraklion, and to provide top cover. I found no evidence that this actually happened. Air support for the commandos was to be provided by the Hellenic Air Force's aging force of F-84F's Thunderstreaks, which were the only aircraft they had on hand with the range to reach Cyprus from Crete. As tensions had grown in the month running up to the coup, all the available F-84F airframes had been serviced in preparation. By the 21st, 96 of them had been brought to flying status. Most were soon underway to bases close to Cyprus, including Suda Bay and Castelli on Crete. A detachment from the 338 Myra, equipped with 26 F-84Fs, was deployed to Castelli and ordered to be ready for strikes against Turkish army positions on the island. For this purpose, each aircraft was armed with 2 rocket pods and 2 500-pound bombs, alongside a full load of 20mm ammunition. 4 JATO rockets were required for assisted takeoff when so heavily loaded. Reportedly, there was a secret treaty between Greece and Lebanon permitting the pilots to land in Lebanon after flying a strike against the Turks on Cyprus, then rearm and refuel and fly another strike while returning to Greece. Due to the need to keep the operation secret, the takeoffs of the Nor Atlases and Dakotas were to commence at 22:30 hours on July the 21st, with single aircraft starting at intervals of 5 minutes, and all being airborne by midnight. This would assure that all would arrive in Nicosia under the cover of darkness. The takeoff plan was kept by the first 5 Nor Atlases, but then delays started to occur on the taxiways, and by the time the 10th aircraft finally started, it was already so late that the order was issued for the 5 remaining Nor Atlases and all of the Dakotas to stay on the ground. The final plane that got away was Nike 15, carrying the heavy equipment and ammunition for the 1st Commando Battalion. But even this Nor Atlas was badly behind the schedule. The crew had actually ignored the order to abort. Apparently they had taken off with their radio out of order. Flying below 500 feet over a featureless sea in the dark and navigating solely by dead reckoning in the stars, the aircraft reached a point west of Cyprus. This was an absolutely extraordinary feat of flying skill, determination, and bravery on behalf of the Greek pilots and their crews. The aircraft then turned one by one towards land, dropping to 50 feet to stay below Turkish radars on the Turkish southern coastline. If they were detected, then the unprotected, unarmed transports would be easy kills for a Turkish F-104 starfighter. Somewhere around this time, Nike 13 got lost and it diverted to Rhodes. Flying at such low levels by night was full of dangers. One Nor Atlas later passed very close to the USS Forrestal, apparently without being intercepted by the carrier's fighters or engaged by its escorts. The US 6th Fleet was already in the area and it was very active, preparing to support an evacuation of foreign nationals from Cyprus. Several Nor Atlases also passed low over the British airbase at Akrotiri, which was already on alert. The base commander immediately warned the Greek officials that any additional aircraft would be intercepted by British forces. Then came the last phase of the flight, the landing in Nicosia. The airfield was defended by several anti-aircraft guns, manned by nervous Cypriot National Guard gunners. Many armed civilians were also in the area with small arms. The Greek High Command believed that they had issued instructions to these two groups that they were to hold fire. Inevitably, in all of the confusion, this order had either not been issued at all, or at least not in such a way that it was received by the Cypriots on the ground. As the first aircraft approached, it therefore flew straight into a hail of fire from several directions. Nevertheless, Nike 1, 2, and 3 somehow managed to land and unload commandos and their equipment. Nike 4 received several direct hits and crashed 2 miles short of the runway. Except for one passenger, everybody on board was killed. The wreckage was only located in 2015, allowing some of the bodies of the 19 still unrecovered passengers to be repatriated. Nike 7 was then hit in both engines. 2 commandos were killed and 11 were injured, but the pilots somehow managed to make an emergency landing. In a desperate effort to signal to those on the ground that they were friendlies, several crews turned all their lights on. Amazingly, this kind of worked, and these Nor Atlases were only damaged but not shot down. By the time the last transport, Nike 15, landed, 2 aircraft had been shot down and 33 soldiers and crew had been killed. The last aircraft, Nike 14, only arrived over the field after first light, and it was ordered to return back to Suda Bay. After unloading, all of the Nor Atlases took off for the return flight, with the exception of the badly damaged Nike 7 and Nike 12, which it turned out did not have enough fuel left for the return flight. That's what might be described as a bit of an oversight. Both aircraft were then destroyed by the National Guard in order to erase traces of direct Greek involvement in the fighting. With troops on the ground, at 05:10 on the 22nd of July, the crews of the F-84s on Crete were sitting in their cockpits when the green flare signalling takeoff was fired. The first aircraft rolled onto the runway, followed by the others, but then final permission for takeoff was never issued. 5 minutes later, a red flare was fired, cancelling the strikes. As it happens, THK F-100s returned to bomb the airport in the morning, so the 2 transports would have probably been destroyed on the ground in any case, and had the F-84s launched, then they may well have encountered the F-100s, and Greece and Turkey would have been perilously close to war. The surviving commanders of the 1st Battalion took positions along the defence perimeter of the airfield, and they were to fight several pitched battles against the Turks in the following days. Their efforts were, however, in vain, and eventually the Greeks were forced to leave the airfield under the control of the UN. Operation Nike was one of several illustrations of the individual skill and bravery shown by Greek and Turkish pilots. It was also a brutal illustration of the poor strategic planning and tactical coordination that the Greek Air Force showed throughout the Cyprus confrontation. In this case, they lost 3 valuable transports and 33 men for no benefit whatsoever.